All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first ever episode of Colbyashi Maru. I'm Colby Spayak, and here I have Kevin Cunningham, he's a developer over at SpinUp, which is his own company. And I'll let Kevin give a little bit of his own introduction.
Hey, Colby, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here. So I'm Kevin. Hello. I'm very excited to be here. A developer. I'm former teacher. I'm now teaching and developing stuff as well. So I'm former teacher. I'm now teaching and developing stuff as well. So I've been recently having a lot of fun with. I released a course on Egghead about getting set up as a CM using Headless WordPress for CMS, and we're going to have a look to see how you might like put a Next.js front end on that. To be cool.
Awesome. Yeah, and Kevin just recently released his own course on Egghead. I'm sorry if you didn't say that. I was fixing the audio at the same time, but he released his own course where he sources Headless WordPress. So he kind of knows what he's doing here, and then I recommend everybody check out his course afterwards. So what can you expect? So I'm going to give Kevin an hour to try to make it through this challenge. Now, if it doesn't take an hour, maybe we can play around with some little extra things and just kind of chat until we get there. Otherwise, we'll see where we're at towards the end, where he would go, and maybe just kind of see where we're at. Throughout this, Kevin, I just ask you to kind of talk through what you're doing when you're working. I'm probably going to bug you with questions, and if anybody out there watching has any questions, make sure you ask, and I can go ahead and ask them for you. Otherwise, let's see Kevin get to it. So let me start the timer on my phone. Eventually, I want to actually get this inside the UI, but for now, this will do. So we'll set it to 1 hour, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go. You see that? Okay.
Can.
Cool. Oh, I accidentally had an extra minute on there, so you got an extra minute.
An extra minute. Cool. So, I guess I'm starting off. So, I have started off with actually having a Headless WordPress instance set up. So this is just WordPress, which is amazing. And I've got 2 plugins. Actually, I'm only going to use 1 plugin for this. I've got 1 plugin called WPGraphQL, which helps expose everything on GraphQL, which is a lot of fun. And I thought I went and gathered all of my posts some of my posts on Headless WordPress that I could find, so that we've got some content in there.
So why would you want to use GraphQL instead of REST API?
Yeah, it's nice. So I guess one of the benefits of GraphQL is that you can get what you want rather than just getting a whole blob of everything. If you're using a REST API, every time you request, if you just want the titles of every post or the slug of every post, you get everything back and not be able to request the very specific parts that you want for the various stages of your build. So with GraphQL, your requests and your response match. The shape is the same. So I can ask for just the titles, or the titles and some author details, and I can get back exactly what I need. And it makes the contract much easier as well, so that if I change something or if something gets broken, I can see clearly what I was asking for. So I'm not having to search everything and try to fix everything. I know, right, it has to be one of these things I'm asking for that's broken, and then it's easier to track down bugs in that kind of way as well.
That's always a good thing.
I think it's one of the most important things, right? Definitely in my life it is. Cool. So I'm going to. So Colby was sort of trying to say Colby. I'll finish off in a little bit. I'll show a quicker way to do this. But Colby said I should make it hard. So I'm going to just spin up a create next app. Called
and just to clarify that, instead of using a starter with everything baked in.
yeah, because actually Colby has got an amazing Next WordPress Starter, which we can plug at the end of this, because it's really good, and it makes a lot of what we're going to talk about really even quicker and much more straightforward. In fact, Colby said don't use the starter when I told him that yesterday I managed to finish the challenge in about 5 minutes. He's like, maybe not. Maybe there's something more to do there. So I've got myself a Next app. And if you if people are familiar with Next, like Next is a React framework that has lots of great things built into it. It does lots of server-side rendering and client-side rendering, so you get lots of SEO juicy goodness. And one of the things I really love about it is its routing. It's file-based routing, and that could be because my professional experience, my professional programming experience, started with PHP, and so just having a file called index and that being the index route makes a lot of sense for me. So as this starts up, you can see I've got an index page in the pages directory, index.js, and that's exporting a function which is returning some JSX. So when I find myself a browser window, which apparently are handy things to have, and go to localhost 3000, I can see, hey, here's my create next app, and then just to double check. Now, hopefully, let's not assume anything, eh? I think it's success. Welcome to Space Jelly. I can't spell Colbyashi Maru, I'm afraid.
There's a space in there, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. I feel like there's. I just remove spaces from everything. I think it makes it look cooler. No spaces. It's all good. Cool. So that's working, which is great. So I'm going to get rid of everything apart from the footer. So let's get rid of. So I've got my index page. So what I'm going to do is in this index page, I'm going to get all of those posts, all these posts over here, and have links out to them, and then we'll get the content and we'll have a look at them, and then we'll see different things that we can and should be doing apart from that. But we're going to use, as I said, we're going to use some GraphQL. So let me open myself a terminal window. And I'm going to use, let's get a bit small now. Let's move you over a bit right there. I'm going to install Apollo client, and Apollo is a GraphQL client and GraphQL that has a lot of niceness baked into it. My business partner and I, Martin, we're talking about this today because we're doing some more GraphQL stuff where we've typically done RESTful APIs, and we use React Query to do a lot of caching and client-side caching. And we were talking, well, like Apollo does a bit of those caching itself, and so if we have something with Apollo and then with React Query, like is it one or t'other? And so we were kind of trying to work through a few problems to kind of decide whether or not we had. I'm not sure we've got a decision yet, but whether or not we wanted to have both or one or other.
Yeah, I haven't used React Query yet, but I've heard great things about it.
It's really cool.
For those who don't know, it's basically it's a hook, right? That allows you to perform REST requests that has a little bit smarter request logic in it. Like it'll do caching for you, for instance.
Yeah. So anything that returns a promise, actually. So it's really cool. So it could be a file-based thing or a GraphQL-based thing, or anything that returns a promise, it's able to do that, which is cool. So I'm going to use. I want to start off by getting all of the post data, and I'm going to do that by doing a GraphQL query. So when you install WPGraphQL, you get this lovely little thing up here, Graphical IDE built in. You used to have to install it separately. In fact, I was looking at Colby's repo last night at some of the things we had put in earlier, and one of the issues we still had open was to add GraphiQL and GraphQL as kind of a theme, but actually they come baked in now as well. And if you haven't used GraphiQL, it's this graphical editor, GraphiQL, get it? GraphiQL. It's this graphical editor to be able to construct GraphQL queries. And someone was surprised when I showed this, but you can just click things on and off, and it automatically populates the query. So if you didn't know that, that's a cool thing. So for this, I'm going to start off. I'm going to get the title, and I want the slug because I'm going to make some links. We'll have the title and we'll have the slug, and we'll link out to that. So let's see, just test my query. And I see I'm actually calling out for pages, and I actually want to call out for posts. So that's a quick fix. Hey, so there are my WordPress posts that I've got their title, I've got their slug, and I can, if I only wanted the slug, as I said, I can just remove it, and what I get back is just the slug.
One thing I think is pretty cool is in the Explorer. I tend to use that myself because I'm not super great with GraphQL yet. But one thing that I find really helpful is the Explorer, where if you like scroll up to the top, you can actually select down and it'll build that query for you. So you don't actually have to know how to write out these queries. You'll eventually get used to it, of course, but you can actually go through and browse what data is available via Graphical for GraphQL.
Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, and if you wanted to do multiple requests, then it shows you how to set those up within the same query. Which, yeah, I'm not sure I would. I'm definitely. I love having the editor to make sure I haven't missed a brace somewhere or got anything there. I like sort of testing it in this environment first. So this is the query I'm going to need to be able to get back some data, and you can see the way it returns a JSON object with a data key, and then the shape of everything below that's what I've asked for. So I've got posts, which matches posts, nodes, which matches nodes, and within nodes I've asked for the title and slug. So I've got a series. Title and slug. So I've got a series of objects in this array where we have the title and slug. So that means I'm going to get an array back. So I'm going to be able to do some mapping, and that's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun to do that. So let's see how we're going to do that over here. So Next has these things called getStaticProps. So I'm going to use export default function, default. It's going to be an async function, and it's going to be called getStaticProps. And
so what's the difference between getStaticProps and getServerSideProps aside from the name of the function?
The name of the function. So it's when they get fetched. So getStaticProps, they'll be fetched and built during the build process. But getServerSideProps, they'll be fetched during that request response cycle for that individual web request. So one will. So I guess you'd use getStaticProps if the data is going to have a longer lifespan. So if you can kind of go, well, it's not going to change very often, that's when you kind of go with getStaticProps. But anything that's going to change more frequently and is more critical, I'd probably bump it up to getServerSideProps would be kind of where I'd go. Would you agree with that, or would you go elsewhere?
No, yeah, I think that makes sense. I tend to go as much static props as I can, just because I like being able to have the confidence that things are static in there, and it's less likely that it'll break in the browser. But there's nothing wrong with get server side props, and you can do some great stuff with it.
No. So I am going to need some of the bits of the Apollo client. So specifically, I'm going to need the Apollo client. I'm going to use an in-memory cache, which means that when I've made that request, Apollo is going to hold on to it. So it's not going to make a second request when I ask for the data. It's going to have it. And then I have this function, GQL. That was hard to say, which is it's a helper function that helps to shape GraphQL queries. So it just helps to get them in the right form. And one thing that I have this cool thing that tells me how much my import cost. Is that this is quite a big import. It's like 158 kilobytes is pretty huge. And I'd be interested whether or not people are using more memory efficient ways to be able to do this, whether or not this is a good way or a bad way, depending on the way that people are doing it, which is cool. So I need a client, and that's going to be a new Apollo client, and I need to pass it a URI. And my headless instance is at headless WordPress.local. And in my course, we talk about how to get this set up, how you can get your CMS ready to go and have this all ready. And using local, which is a cool tool from a company called Flywheel, to be able to get a WordPress instance running locally. I know you, Colby, use Lightsail for some of your WordPress instances. Is that right?
Yeah, so Lightsail is great for spinning up new WordPress instances on AWS. And if you're on AWS, it runs you about the lowest is $350 a month. And if you're doing static compiling and you're not constantly hitting it, you'll probably stay at that. So I really like it because it's easy to spin up and you don't have to worry too much about managing that infrastructure. But as far as like local development goes, so far I've
Mhm.
only done WordPress, but it's been a while since I've developed WordPress locally. So next time I do, I'm definitely going to be checking out local.
Do. So I've got set up this client. So I've got it pointing to my GraphQL endpoint. And that's so one of the cool things about WPGraphQL is once you're set up, it gives you an option of where to put your endpoint. And one of the things I really love about headless CMSs in general is kind of the obfuscation of where my data is. I don't need to tell people where my server is, especially if I'm statically building. So there's that sense where people won't know where it is. But to make it even more secure, you could change your endpoint so people don't know that exactly where GraphQL where it is. You can make it as obscure as you want. I keep it with the default GraphQL. And one of the ways you know it's working is if I hit that endpoint, I'll get an error message. Not that error message. That's another error message. It's headless WordPress. I want to check out, not headless egghead. Too many headless things going on. And this error is just telling me I didn't send a proper GraphQL request. So fair enough, it's right, I didn't. But that means it's listening.
And just a quick in here, the Dave Davies gave you a nice shout out, said that your course is great. So
cool, thanks, Dave.
I agree.
Thank you. So now I know I've got my query. Oh, did I lose my query? Oh, I've got my query here, which I'm just going to take with me and plop it in between those lovely quotes. They're just sitting there ready for it. So I've got my client, which I've constructed with my endpoint and my in-memory cache. And then I'm going to get that data object, which we saw is provided by the query over here. I'm going to get that data key. And I'm going to, from that, I'm going to send this query and get that, deconstruct that off. And then once I've got that, I'm going to want to return that to my my page. So the way I do that is I return some props. So I'm going to return an object, and it's going to have a key of props. And then whatever I return here is the props. And I'm returning the posts data, and that's going to be on the data object. And if we remember the way down, inside data, I've got posts and then nodes. Well, I'm just going to deconstruct that now. I'm going to send just the array that's going to get back on that series of things there. And then to check that's working, let's accept the posts up here. And let's console log the posts.
Good old console log.
And
hey, what's up, Will?
Who doesn't love a bit of console log? Now, what's interesting is that doesn't work. And if we look back over here, I think I'm right in saying, yeah, that doesn't work. It's undefined. And that's because we used getStaticProps. And if Next instantiates and there wasn't a getStaticProps in the page, then it won't know to look for a getStaticProps during the rest of the development cycle. So I need to close my server. Oh, apparently Control Z is not working. Oh yeah, I turned off my key bindings. For some reason, yarn. There we go. Now, hopefully, as that builds, we will see. Hey, there's the posts. So we've successfully got the posts, and they're in the console during the build. And then when we look over here, they're also over here in the client side. So we're receiving them as we log them out.
So why are they also in the console, in the terminal?
Because there's there's kind of two things. It runs twice during development. I think it only does it once in production. But what the reason the first time this console log over here is because the first build of the page is on the server itself. So as the server builds the page, the server gets a console log, and so I'm getting it in the server. And the second time, when it gets over here, it runs a second time, and so I get the same effect in the browser as well. So I've got both of those going on. In production, you only see the first one, so it will only be on the server side. But they run things I think twice to help flush out bugs, which sometimes makes me think that there's more bugs than there are. But
right.
What do I know?
I was asking if you're passing the test. So far, so good. but
Haven't
there's
had a cheat yet.
43 minutes left.
Ooh. Okay, so I've got my posts. And so we've confirmed they're there. Let's get rid of this terminal, and then let's do let's just see them. So let's get the post, and we know it's an array. And let's map over each post, and then let's, I don't know, do a paragraph with the post title in it. Cool. Okay, so we have post titles. That's nice. So we've got nice post titles. Don't do anything yet. Don't do that's it's cool. We've got data from WordPress, and what's cool now is if I go back to WordPress and was to add a new post, so does space jellies have a space? It's space jellies. Is that a space or space jellies? So if I write a new post over there and save that, publish that.
I need to do a spin-off Space Heli.
Space Helis. Let's see. So if we refresh this page, so our data is we've got refetched during that build phase. In real life, that wouldn't happen because it's statically built. But because we're in development cycle, it is refreshing those server-side props. And so we'd need a trigger mechanism in order to, if we are statically building it, we need a trigger a build to be able to get the posts out there. But having a list of posts isn't that useful, so let's turn them into links. So I'm going to use a link, which is available from Next.js, and it needs a href prop. So I am going to change this into a link. Give myself some more space for the moment, and it needs a href prop. This is going to be the post. What's going to be? It's going to be /posts, and then let's put the slug in there. Oops. Post.slug. And we can still have the title. Is that us? Is that it? Cool. We've got a link to 404s now. So cool. We've lost a lot of that nice spacing we had. So what I might do is stick them all into a paragraph. And then I've done the thing that I'm not supposed to do, which is we need a key, really, don't we? So let's put a key in this paragraph of the post slug.
We like to keep React quiet.
We do. So let's make sure the console is not shouting at me. I've got these. They look a bit nicer, spaced out like that. And clicking on them brings them to my very own 404 page. Job done. Oh wait, no, it's not quite right, is it? So we need to do something with that. So like I was saying, the cool thing about Next is it's all file-based routing. And I'm sending this to /posts and then the slug. So I'm going to go to my panel here. I'm going to create a new folder called posts. And that's matching that part of the path. And then a dynamic part of the path, because that's going to change with each slug. And Next handles that with square brackets. So I'm going to call that slug.js. Cool. So just to make sure that we're getting where I want.
So those square brackets mean that it's looking for that value instead of being a static path, right? Yeah,
it does. So I'm going to import or export a function here and return some stupid with return a div saying hey. So now if I click on this, I get a page that says hello. And actually that's true of any of these links because they all have posts /something. And it's also true of anything else I type in here. So I love eating jelly in space. Also has a page.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say you're going to eat Cosmo.
Oh, I wouldn't eat Cosmo. Do jellyfish like jelly?
Probably. It's easy for them to digest.
That would be true. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So that's all well and good, but I kind of want each page to actually have the content of the post. That seems like a pretty low bar to be able to do that. So let's do what we did last time, which is we did static props. Export static props and see what happens then. So if I do export my sync function called getStaticProps, and well, I'm tempted to just copy and paste. And when I'm tempted to copy and paste, I think, well, that probably means I should do something else, doesn't it? So this Apollo client, there's a temptation now. I need to use it again. So I'm going to go into the root of my directory, create a utils folder, maybe a lib folder. Who cares? Who knows? And I'm just going to create a file called Apollo. I'm going to copy out my Apollo client function from there to there, and I'm going to need. Well, let's take this whole thing with me. I'm in a rush because Colby's got a stopwatch. And then get rid of this. And then export client. And then I need to import my client. It's all going to go wrong now. So I don't need those in here now. So does that? I wonder if that calculation drops off massively now. Does it? It's become really tiny. Import client from no, it's same size from utils / Apollo. So hopefully, if I've done that right, then nothing should change on this page. So that means on my new page, I can do the same thing. So I'm going to import my client from, and I haven't set up jsconfig.json, which you can do, which means you can not have to you can just use an @ symbol at the start rather than do some nice nesting rather than having to do backpath. I think I should write a free code camp article about that. I haven't seen that. I should do that.
Yeah, I haven't, like the @ symbol pattern is interesting because I've only recently seen that, and I like that because I like that it denotes that. Previously, I would just do, for instance, I would make source so that I would just type utils /
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. But I like the @ symbol, so I like it.
Me too. Yeah.
Cool. So what I want to do. So what did we do last time? We got our client. Okay, so let's do that, and then we'll return our data. But this time we want more and different data, right? So what else do we want? Let's go and ask WPGraphQL. So what do you think? I reckon we need some content. That's always a useful thing to have for a blog, I'm told.
I think so.
And maybe that'll do us for now. I mean, what's cool? There are lots. Oh, if there's a featured image, let's bring over the featured image alt text and its source, media source item URL. I haven't got any featured image, but we can add some and then see what the difference is with that. That could be cool. Okay, so let's bring this query and replace the other one over here. And cool. Let's see what happens then. So if I click on here, let's console log. Let's accept the post data. Oh, now we just want to send the post data. This is going to be different, isn't it? It's interesting. But all the posts, but we only want one post now. So we want to get the post by the slug, and actually there's another. Instead of doing post, we can do post by up here. So post by slug, and then we want the slug. So let's do. Does space jellies have jelly? That's not even a sentence. Does space jelly have a space? That's a bit better.
And to clarify, this slug, what is the slug in terms of how it identifies on a node?
Nice. So the slug is just the it's the name it's the path that's going to be at the end of the URL. And for posts, it's unique. So each post has an individual slug. So I'm able to find each page, each post just by its slug. It's like a key identifier. And WordPress automatically takes the title. You see space jellies or space jelly. Space jellies have. Oh, sorry, there's the title. Does space jellies have a space? It removes any punctuation, lowercases everything, and replaces all the spaces with hyphens. So it's just an identifier on the post. So actually, this is what I want to search for, and I want the title I want all those things I just said a second ago. The title, the content. I don't really need the slug actually at this point because I'm already got it. And maybe the featured image. Let's just stop there. When you can get to featured image, what we'll see. Actually, I want the meter. Cool. And you can see that again, the data then is post by and then the post object. So that means that when I bring this guy over here to replace that, slug does I'm going to return post by, or the post, which is going to be data.post by. I fully expect, so I'm going to need to stop my server and restart it because I've got a new getStaticProps, but it's going to shout at me in a minute. And we'll see, hopefully the error will tell us why, what I've done wrong. And we'll see what the problem is here. So let's get our server, let's restart. Hey, it's restarted. So this is looking fine, super. And if I click on one of these, so space studies have jellies. Okay, so it says getStaticPaths is required for dynamic SSG pages and is missing for post/slug. Interesting. So what's cool is that.
Yeah, do you want to describe what getStaticPaths does?
I do. So what's really cool is that we can what Next wants is it wants an array of paths that we're expecting for this static route. So we have that dynamic route that we can type in random characters, and we know Next is going to do that. But because it wants to build every page, it can't guess the infinite possibilities to could be at the end of that dynamic route. And so when you have a dynamic route like this one, Next needs you to add some way for it to know all of the paths that are going to be covered and all the paths that are going to be expected. So that's just another function that we're going to add at the bottom here. So it's going to be called, it's going to be another export. Oops, there's my caps lock again. Export async function.
Remember when we typed HTML in capital letters?
Yeah, yeah.
Like in the 90s.
I remember a lot of the 90s being very, very odd, but yes. And HTML. Do we not still use capital letters for HTML? I feel like when I write it, I still do that. Am I wrong?
You still do that?
I think I still do.
You like to feel like you're shouting when you're putting in a line break, right?
Yeah, I'm not as cool as you. But yeah, so I'm passing back. I need to pass back an array of paths, and in this array, there's lots of objects, and the objects have params. And these are the parameters that are going to be passed down to each possible page. And I'm going to pass down the slug, and it's going to be actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass down the single post at the moment. So the only route that's going to work is does space jellies have a space. So we have this array of objects, and so you would have one of these for every page. And then you have to pass another option called fallback. And this is a Boolean. And what it says is if it's false, if you set the fallback to false, then if you hit any other route that's not defined in the paths, then we'll just serve a 404. There's nothing we're going to do with that. But if we set fallback to true, what that says is that what that tells Next is there may well be a valid path, so go check it out when a web user hits it, and if it fits, then fine. So that's helpful if you have a base content and then are adding more content in, then a user that will also then be added to the static store. So it's pretty cool. But let's set it as false to start with, and then let's see what happens if we see if that fixes our problem. Again, I might have to restart the server because of this getStaticProps. Because it getStaticPaths. Oh, that's my problem. I put props twice. Come on, Colby. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to click on does space jelly have a space jelly, and it says GQL is not defined. Amazing. So let's import. Oops, Import GraphQL from my Apollo client. Let's try again. Hey, it worked. But that's not very helpful. So let's get the post content and console log. Actually, let's just dump it. Let's put some pre-tags in and stringify it. JSON.stringify. What do I want to stringify? I want to stringify the post. And I'm just going to add some variables to make it look a bit nicer.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. That content.
So do you want to describe what you just did with the extra parameters into JSON stringify? You don't want to do it?
Yeah, it's fine.
So I don't know what they mean, but I know what it does.
Yeah. So I understand this too, which is like we're doing it down to 2 levels, and I think it's a space character. I'm going to look it up. I'm afraid. Sorry.
You can just try putting in something.
Yeah. Let's see. What happens if we put in like a string of Colby? What happens then? Nothing seems to happen then.
Nothing.
Second parameter. It's a replacer and a space. A function alters the behavior of the process of the string or number. So it's a function in the middle. So hey, I've just replaced everything with Colby.
I mean, I prefer that, but you might get stuck with your content.
Yeah, maybe stick with my content. So yeah, and then I don't have a featured image in this post, but I've got the other things here. Now, if I try to go to another route, space -1, I'm getting a 404 because of that fallback being set to false. So if I change the fallback to be set to true, and see what happens then. So that is being accepted as a valid path. Now we hard coded the URL up here, so we're going to need to fix that in a second and sort that out. But there's a bit of we hard coded the slug. The slug's actually being passed into here. So I could just do this and replace that with slug. If I type it properly, and that's saying that for every path, my getStaticProps function is going to be expecting this parameter, which is the slug. So that hopefully hasn't. I don't know if it has changed something. Is it params dot thingy diff? I don't know.
Let me see if I can look it up quick.
Okay, paths. I think I've probably done. I'm definitely done something wrong, but I just remember what. I had params.slug. Sorry. So
you got it.
I did get it. Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the params, which are going to be an object. And there's sometimes when in some of the renders that might come back as mightn't come back as an object. So I'm just sort of doing some destructuring of params, which is going to be an object. And just to make sure that it doesn't fail, I'm going to stick that in there. And then my slug is in params.
I definitely am the type of person that tends to over put as many like checks there just so that I
just
don't get
in case, right?
Yeah,
just in case. So again, I'm passing this params object back into my getStaticProps for every path, and we're actually sending it back. It seems to be just for that path for the does space jellies. Go there. So let's have a look. I've thrown a new error. I fixed it. And you get that. So -1 doesn't have anything for it, but without it we do. So we have, and that makes sense. We have something on the other side. And we have a fallback, which means we should be able to use some of our other slugs, right? So it could be that, so at the moment, if we go back to our home page, how long I've got left, Colby, I don't know. How long do I have left?
Oh, sorry. You have just under 24 minutes.
So at the moment,
Just
the
so
only
I
one that's been
officially show.
thank you. The only one that's been statically built is this guy. This does space jellies have space? Well, because the fallback, it's very possible that our other ones will work, but they won't be built. So you can see here, they haven't been statically built, So they weren't like pre-generated and fetched during the initial build, but they will still work because we are passing down. You can see we're saying that we're getting the slug from the parameters, and we can see where every one of these we're clicking on, and we're getting the same. We're getting the right content. But we do want to statically build this. Colby was very strict with me. He said, definitely we need to make sure that they're statically built. Okay, Colby. So we need some way to be able to get all the slugs on this page, which is annoying. We did that already in another page over here. We got all the slugs there. So we do want to get all these slugs again. And yeah, that makes me think, oh, I should probably take away, like abstract some of this functionality, right? So let's do that. Let's do that. No, you just want me to copy and paste? Oh, Colby, you're such a bad influence.
You don't want to prematurely
over-engineer,
right?
Yeah, you're such a bad influence.
I was looking for
that. Cool. Okay, so that now, if that data is going to come back as just the slugs of all the posts, cool. And then what I want to do is I want an object that looks like this for each of the posts to come back. So it's already an array. It's already going to be an array. So that means I'm able to use one of my favorite functions. I'm able to take the data .posts.nodes. Remember, we get data and it has the same shape then, posts.nodes. So that's going to get me down to my slugs array. And I'm going to map over it. And I'm going to say for every slug, I want an object. Now, are you ever tempted just to leave it like that and hope that because there's a temptation for me anyway when I open curly braces to go, well, that's object, that should be fine, but I get tripped up in sometimes in this where I kind of, it's there. So I'm going to take that shape and I'm going to replace this with the slug. Let's just come on. And yeah, if you don't like, cool JavaScript trick is that if the key and the value are the same in the array, you can just leave them out because it's assumed that they're the same. So it should look like that. So
do you think that slug argument does that need to be destructured there?
Ooh, what do you reckon?
In the map?
Yeah.
Or is that
going to be that's going to be, yeah, you're right. So that's going to be post, and then that's going to be post.slug. Keep me on my
So if you don't mind, when you set up that list of paths and you set up that param of slug, what is that referring to?
This one?
Like in the Next.js API, like what is that referring to?
So it's referring to the this guy here. The it's giving the
so inside the file name.
Yeah, the file name, the static square bracket doof. It's applying the value, or it's giving the value for that, which is why, because we're getting on because when we had some that weren't built, it was looking to there because it wasn't finding it in the static props. It was looking for it in the dynamic prop up there. Was that your question? Does that mean? Have I answered
I mostly just wanted to point out for those watching that the slug refers to the slug in the file name.
Cool. So you're asking a question. You weren't really asking a question, I know. Cool. So we have our page content getting down here, and given time, we're going to do something which we're going to do something that the API for React gives us some slight hints that they're not really how they think we should be doing it. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So I've got a div here, and I'm going to use the React prop dangerously set inner HTML. Like that's a clue right there, right? And this has to get past an object, which means I need a single object to be able to start interpolating, and a second object for there. And the key for that is _HTML, and the value for that is at last our content. Amazing.
Kevin, the fact that you can do that without having to look up that prop name seems like you've been doing this a lot.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. Hey, look, we've got some posts going on. Yay, we've got some data going on. Let's see any more advantages of headless WordPress, customizable backend. We've got the images coming through. We've got some other things. Isn't it gorgeous? Like, this is ready for launch. Look at that.
So.
That full screen experience is amazing. Who
So
cares about like 80 character max or anything? Yeah. Sorry, what do you
so
think?
you're grabbing the list of posts on the homepage, and then you're creating a link using that slug, and then for each of those slugs, you're creating a new page that you're linking to.
Yep. And then that page,
Awesome.
during the build process, that page is fetching all the data from WordPress, and is then it's then available to be able to build the page. And there are lots of things we can do here. I mean, obviously, on the styling, I think is already amazing. But if you wanted to, over-engineer the styling, make it look good or whatever Colby might say, set a max width or whatever, then obviously that's definitely something that would be cool to do. And sorry, I was trying to remember where. One of the other things is to think about like not using dangerously set inner HTML. Jason Bale, who is one of the creators of or the creator and one of the maintainers of WPGraphQL, has this cool function that he uses called parse HTML into React, which does some cool things and allows you to use code blocks and various things there. It'd be good to link to his to that repo, I think, if you're linking somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Dave asks if you could trigger a rebuild after you post every post, and yeah, definitely. So one of the things that that I plan doing is, I mean, you can put a if you're using Vercel or anything like GitHub or anything that uses a triggered build, it's just a webhook to be able to trigger a build. So you can hook into the save or publish function in WordPress and trigger that automatic build, or you could have a button that you clicked that triggered that build. I guess there's always a hesitation about whether or not you want to trigger a build on every post, or at least every time you hit save. Does that definitely? Do you want to preview it first, or yeah? I think whatever flow you find works for you. I know some people are using this kind of setup with 8,000 or 9,000 different editors and authors, and so having control over when you publish and trigger a build in that cycle is interesting, and where that sits and how that goes. But you can definitely trigger it, but it's really up to you to decide where you want to put it.
How would you trigger that in WordPress? How would you set it? Like, so say I have my URL. So the way that the build trigger works in something like Vercel or Netlify is you have a URL that they give you that's unique to your build. When you hit that, it automatically triggers a new build, right? So how would you set that up in WordPress? WordPress. Is there a plugin or something?
Yeah, so either you probably need to do a little bit of fun coding yourself. So we could write. I think this is the one where I have. Yeah, so this is something I've been working on, and in this code, I can use this to add a button to anywhere here or anywhere along the top, and by clicking it would just create a curl request from the current browser I'm in. So yeah, I'm definitely, if that, and I think WP Gatsby definitely have a preview, and I think they have a build. They're looking at a build thing, but if maybe I should make a quick plugin for that, like publish to a webhook or trigger a webhook with a button. In fact, I bet you if we search, the thing with WordPress is that it's been around a while, and if we search for
I heard WordPress has plugins.
I've heard it has plugins. If we search for webhook, add webhooks. Let's see how easy it would be if we just take this random plugin I've just found, installed, and activated. Where's it going to put something? Where is it? So it might be settings or tools, plugins, settings. Here we go. In settings, it's added a new menu there. And so how do I send data? Currently don't have any triggers. I don't know, but anyway, it's very possible to be able to set in. I wish it had been just a little bit quicker. I would have been able to finish it off. That's good. So this
No,
is
you're at
really cool.
13 minutes.
I've got 13 minutes. Okay, so what I might do is kind of pull the parachute and start again with your starter. What do you
I think
reckon?
that sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we move
So,
on, looks like you have one more question.
yeah.
Would be interesting to play with the incremental static generation
Mm.
on getStaticProps. Yeah. So are you familiar with that, with the incremental static
So with
generation?
I've only seen that in Gatsby and only hosted. I haven't seen like is it possible? Have they released that further to like
Yeah, so
on
I think it's a
Gatsby
bit
now?
different. It's a bit different than the Gatsby one, as far as I
Okay.
understand. So the way that it works with when you deploy Next.js to Vercel is
Mhm.
it kind of works. It's almost like it's a server-side website, but it serves each of the pages cached
Mhm.
on the front end. So they'll cache it, but you can put a timeout so that when somebody hits that site, if it's past that timeout, they'll still get that cached version. But Vercel on the back end will go ahead and make another request to refresh it. So you'll still have that one person getting a stale
The
hit,
stale.
but then
Yeah.
the people in
Everyone
the
after
future
that.
will get that refreshed content.
Oh, that's lovely. That actually potentially solves a problem I was trying to think through the other day, which is yeah, no, that's really cool. I definitely have a look at that.
Yeah. And that
Um,
actually probably
mhm.
would make you not have to do like webhooks, right? Because if it's
Quite.
constantly hitting the WordPress API, but
Yeah.
at that point, since it is hitting the WordPress API, unless you have a big timeout, you know, how different is it than like server-side props?
Yeah, precisely. You're kind of there. So bye, lovely headless Colby site that I've just spent hours building. Well, less than an hour. And what I'm going to do, I hope this is still in my.
So you promised me that you took 5 minutes to do this.
Oh
And
no,
you're
that's a
11
real
minutes
challenge,
left.
isn't it? Okay,
Yeah,
right. So
this is
this
the
is
gauntlet.
challenge number 2. Right. Okay. So this is the command I ran to. So what this is doing is it's going to Colby's GitHub and it's looking at his next WordPress starter and it's generating an app based on what's there. And Colby has done a lot of that Apollo stuff that we've looked at already. And he has had a look at some of those already. Yeah.
And
I
shout
can't
out for
remember.
all the help that you've given me on the project as well.
Thanks. So let's have a look at the code. And a lot of it will feel familiar. As you see, now Colby likes his source folders. So you'll see a source folder in here now. Oh, look, there's me. And we can see pages in the same place we had it. We've got index. And you can see it looks very similar. We've got our getStaticProps and getAllPosts. GetAllPosts comes from libpost. So if I check out libpost, we can see getAllPosts is now it looks familiar, eh? Apollo, getApollo client. We've got our data, query all posts. Colby's done a great job of abstracting those away. So all of our queries are over here in posts. And so if you query all posts, you're getting everything on the post, the categories, the authors, the content, and lots of different things. We've got those different queries. And having them separate into that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's pretty similar to what you were showing before, except it's abstracted out into functions to make it easier to reuse throughout the site.
Exactly, which is awesome. Now, the one thing I need to do is tell, before I start up the server, is to tell it where my WordPress instance is. And I need to check the README because it tells me where to put that. So, and it's .env.local. I think .env works. I think it takes all of them.
I'm not sure.
So this is going to be headless WordPress.local. Save that. And did I quit the other one? I did. Cool. npm run dev. Now, I think the site I showed, it already looks amazingly beautiful. And so I just want to, have I misspelled something?
Head WordPress, should that be headless?
Oh, no, it's the metadata. I haven't put on the thing that you said I needed to do, which we'll do in a second. So let's have a look. If I go back to this, my break. You said there's something I need to do. So let's get localhost 3000. It might just work anyway. which is to add the Twitter metadata.
You shouldn't have to. You mean in the next WordPress
in the WordPress site? Yeah.
I think is it supposed to be head WordPress or is it supposed to be headless WordPress?
How to be headless?
Because I think you had the there you go.
Ugh. You and your needing to spell things properly, honestly.
It should just know.
Well, quiet. Okay, there that looks a bit better. That looks more green than red. Let's say. So as I was saying, the site that I showed already and that we built together looked amazing. So let's see if Colby can do any better. So let's see what happens. So we've got headless WordPress. We've got a title. So that's not too bad, right? So that's not bad. We've got these cards with. Oh, so it's pretty good. We've got the space jelly and we've got this sticky post. So I've set this one to be sticky, which is headless WordPress. Should you use REST or GraphQL? And that's right at the top there. We've got this search icon. So if I search for REST, I see everything. Oh, I suppose it's pretty good. And if we go through to the individual posts, and see that we've got our title, who it's by, and then we've got it. Looks pretty great.
And I got to hand it to you that. So you're at 7 minutes. That was less than 5 minutes.
See, I told you. I said Beautiful. If I use the starter, if I use the starter, there's going to be no point. Now, one of the things that I saw was, and I wasn't sure whether or not this was, so WordPress. So categories are great. So back in the posts, I can categorize things. I've got this quick edit where I can switch on and off categories that are existing, which is great. But WordPress
said that you get to live. I agree.
Thanks, Trust.
This time.
It's uncategorized, and for me, uncategorized isn't a category. So I was going to create. What do you reckon? I think having uncategorized in the footer, I don't like it.
Oh, I agree, but it doesn't show up in your. I thought it still defaults. Can't you set the default? I'm drawing blank. So inside of
category.
WordPress, yeah, I think you can set the default category to another category, right?
Yeah, but uncategorized still. You can't. I think you can delete it as a category. I think maybe.
No, I thought doing that does remove it.
Oh, you're right. So if I'm
not sure where you either update that there or inside of the settings panel. I can't remember.
Okay,
that's the default.
Cool.
That is.
That's cool to me. I didn't know that. Default category. Writing.
There we go at the top
there. Headless WordPress. And so that must mean now I can delete.
Did you? I think you have to hit save at the bottom of that now.
Yeah, you're right. So default category, headless WordPress. Let's save the changes, I guess. And then go back to categories. And now I should be able to delete uncategorized. Okay, fine. I'll do it that way. And then if I refresh this page, TikTok.
Yay.
Then it's gone from there. Yay! So we've got recent posts, and I copied these all into this WordPress instance last night, and so they're all pretty recent, which is cool. And I've been like there's been. I feel like headless WordPress people are talking about a bit more now, which I'm excited by. And one person who's talking about lots. If I can just shout out to Keelan Mace. And if anyone's seen, he put a video out a few weeks ago, where he used headless WordPress as his back end for like a running app, as the API, sort of doing mutations on the data, posting backwards and forwards, and using it as a full kind of app. So there's I'd recommend get his YouTube channel, and I'll stick it in the chat because I was
gonna say if you want to stick it in the chat.
Some great stuff there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you still have 4 minutes left. Do you want to do anything else, or do you want to just call it?
Well.
This is your time. You can do with it what you please.
I'm trying to think. So the uncategorized was the bit I was going to get rid of, which is cool. Now at the moment, how are we doing dangerously set inner HTML here at the moment? So how we're
we're currently doing dangerously set. Yeah.
HTML. Well, let's see.
I'd love if Jason should or somebody should abstract his that parse HTML function into a little package to pull in. That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. So I'm just having a quick look. to see if it's possible to do it quickly on the fly here.
Yeah, I don't know about in 3 minutes. But
yeah, that could be.
I think we could just call it there.
We just call it there. Cool.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, nice job. Not only did you finish the original challenge, which was spinning up a WordPress site by spinning up a new Next.js project from scratch and sourcing it with Apollo for GraphQL, but you also did a second website with the Next WordPress Starter in less than 5 minutes. That's crazy.
It's amazing. But I mean, and that's one of the awesome things about headless CMSs is that you can plug and play the front end. You know, the data is there. And we can kind of suck it out in different ways. You know, that same content could be powering my app on my watch, or it could be powering, you know, lots of other different things, or it could be powering 1,000 different multi-sites, kind of, you know, that are like serving content ever so slightly differently. And yeah, I mean, that's why I think headless CMSs are amazing. I think WordPress is a great CMS that fits a lot of the criteria that people have in place for trying to make those decisions.
And I think it gets a lot of flack from the past because, like, traditionally when you do like serverful WordPress, like you get a lot of the plug and blow if people kind of go overboard with that. Where like with the WordPress or with the headless, you only pull in that data and you're basically building it how you want, whether it's static or not. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think the WordPress editor is still one of the better editors out there.
Yeah, no, great.
Just is asking, are there any real life examples of those sorts of things? What specific sorts of thing? Unless Kevin, you understood the context.
People using the content in different ways. Is that
so
is that what you mean?
Hear the example a lot, but he hasn't seen any sites that ship the same content to app sites watches.
So one example I've got
definitely.
You go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah.
So like publishing, a lot of publishing houses use it for that kind of idea, particularly if they have core content that they're pushing out to all their sites, and then localized content. So they've got maybe so having news for Boston and news for Brighton and news for Pittsburgh and news for Philadelphia and news for, you know, but you may still have like privacy stuff your privacy policy you might want to maintain in the CMS, and you may have some terms and conditions you might want to maintain, and so you've got different bits that you can send out equally to different places and categorize the other bits just to show up in the US or just to show up in Europe or those various things. But you were going to say something else?
Yeah, so like this was a long time ago when I worked at ThinkGeek, and we weren't using WordPress, but we were using an API to be able to get content. And what we would do is we'd allow a publisher not a publisher, a team that was building a native app for our platform to hit that API so that they can get the same content for things like products. But if you think about, there's so many different news websites that uses WordPress for their content, and I would imagine there has to be at least one out there that has a native app. I don't know one off the top of my head, but because I don't pay attention to that part of it, but I have to imagine one of them has a native application that pulls in that content. Same.
Yeah, I see Riza say it's Twig, and that Twig's a PHP templating language, structure, syntax. But actually, we're using React, Next in React. So actually, the content itself is kind of just HTML, and we're doing all of the smart templating fun stuff. We're using React to be able to do that with our next app here.
Yeah,
I think that's the question.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. If anybody else has any questions, bring them up. But thanks for working through the challenge. That was a good time. There's a lot there to learn and kind of take in. Do you have any last closing thoughts, and do you want to make any plugs?
Yeah, I mean, Headless WordPress is great. I feel like I'm that drum's one that needs and can be described banged lots. And yeah, if you want to set up a headless WordPress CMS, there's a course on Egghead which is just for you. But otherwise, yeah, I'm writing lots on my website, kevincunningham.co.uk, and on Free Code Camp. I'm getting more stuff out there as well. So, and Egghead. So yeah, follow me on Twitter, and hopefully see some of you around on the various places we hang out.
And I'm trying to search. Do you have a link handy to your WordPress? Here, I found it actually.
Cool.
I think on the next site, so that I can link people over to that.
Cool.
It's taking a little bit to load. Here we go. It's the WordPress as a headless management content system, the GraphQL
Yep.
API, right?
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Yep.
So,
check that link if you want to check out Kevin's course. Highly recommend it. There's some good stuff there. But yep, thanks again, Kevin. And
thanks,
until
Colby.
next time, if anybody else has anybody that they'd like to hop on and take the challenge with Colbyashi Maru, definitely reach out and let me know. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll be bugging some of you in the near future. And thanks everybody for stopping by.